Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month was Plymouth County sees a busy spring market. We're reporting today on the May activity at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. The show is being taped in June here at Brockton Cable Access Television. We're going to talk about the recording numbers for May. I have a great guest in the second segment, Steve Amico, Vice President of Lending with Coastal Heritage Bank, and then a little bit of our county and colony history. So let's go right to the numbers. You're going to see a chart of deeds, sales of property. So for the month of May, there were 923 sales of property, higher than the 850 in April, 43% higher than last year. Year to date, we're up 19% in terms of sales of property. You're going to see next an image for every community in Plymouth County, their sales from January through May. Every community from Abington through Whitman has had a good amount of activity, certainly higher than last year at this time. Clearly, Plymouth and Brockton have the highest number of sales. The next image you're going to see is of mortgages. So our mortgages are slightly off April's numbers. There were 2,951 mortgages recorded in May, down from the 3,330 in April, and that was down from March, but we're still 8% higher than mortgages last year. Last May, year to date, we're up 61% in mortgages. The next image you're going to see is of foreclosure deeds. We continue to follow foreclosure deeds. There's been a moratorium in place because of the COVID restrictions. So there were only 4 foreclosure deeds throughout all of Plymouth County in May, slightly less than the 6 in April, though 73% lower than last year at this time. And pretty much the same thing for notices, although those have crept up a little bit. We had 19 foreclosure notices in May and 14 in April. A foreclosure deed is when a lender has taken back a property, usually for non-payment. A foreclosure notice, it's an order of notice that is basically a step in the foreclosure process that identifies someone being in trouble. If anyone's having difficulty paying their mortgage, reach out to a federal housing counselor as fast as you can. NeighborWorks of America has offices in Brockton and Kingston in Plymouth County, and they're a great source to help you maybe modify your loan or get you some financial help. You're going to see a chart now of the foreclosures and orders of notices for May. As you can see, there are still a lot of zeros and very low numbers. So we still have a free property fraud alert on our website. We've had a huge increase in electronic recordings. Our Plymouth office has been open for a couple of weeks to the public. Our satellite offices will open to the public on June 28th, and then we'll shortly open up our closing rooms, trying to get back to normal. I have a great guest coming on the show. Next segment, Steve Amico, Vice President of Lending for Coastal Heritage Bank. See you in the next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This segment of the show, We always do something educational in nature. We've had surveyors, appraisers, commercial real estate brokers, many lenders, and a whole number of realtors. I have a great repeat guest today. I have Steve Amico, who is the Vice President of Residential Lending for Coastal Heritage Bank. And we can shake
We can
even.
shake, absolutely.
Now, we're back in business.
Yep, you got it.
So you've been a great guest here before.
Thank you,
You're
John.
very knowledgeable of what you talk about. And first of all, for our viewers, I'd like to explain to them how you get into the real estate business.
Sure. Well, I started off 36 years ago as a teller at Quincy Savings Bank way back when, and just moved up.
And where was that located?
Quincy Savings Bank was right at the South Quincy office, right in Quincy, on
Okay.
Franklin Street.
Okay.
And then I moved into collections, and then after collections, I moved into the lending side.
Great.
I think that's probably the best way to go, because you are a little bit more discerning when you're lending after you've been on the collection side.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. But I've been doing residential mortgages now for 27 years, 24 and a half of them with Coastal Heritage.
Great. So why don't you describe for our viewers a little bit of the history of your bank?
Sure. So Coastal Heritage Bank was originally formed when Situate Federal Savings Bank and S Bank, formerly known as South Shore Cooperative Bank, merged back in 2015. We didn't take S Bank's name, we didn't take Situate Federal's name, so we created the name Coastal Heritage. At that point in time, we ended up with just about 9 branches, including our executive center. And recently, about 2 years ago, we merged with Equitable Bank. And when we merged with Equitable Bank, we ended up with 5 more offices. And we have 11 offices in Plymouth County. We have 2 offices in Norfolk County and 2 offices in, I believe it's Middlesex County, it's Lynn and Nahant.
Okay. Yes.
You know, but that's how we became Coastal Heritage, and
Great.
that's where we stand right now.
Great. So Coastal Heritage covers a big coast in Massachusetts.
We do.
Yeah.
We cover a big footprint
Yeah.
for a small bank.
No, it's good. So let's talk a little bit about real estate activity as it relates to mortgages.
Sure.
In the earlier part of my show, I talked about the number of mortgages that we've been recording over the last year. It's an incredible number. So many people have either used purchase mortgages or refinanced that the numbers of mortgages have shot way up over last year.
Right. It's funny. You would think, and I know we talked earlier about the pandemic, and we're just coming out of the pandemic now, and since, I'm going to say February, March of 2020, the real estate market has been crazy. Mm-hmm. The rates have been reasonable, low. I mean, they couldn't be any lower than they are right now, but they've been low. The activity has been phenomenal. A lot of people have taken advantage of the lower rates so that they can do home improvements, some construction, some debt consolidation. And during the pandemic, I think they actually had more time to actually look to see what they had for mortgage rates and decided that they were going to be able to save money. In the same time, the purchase market has gone crazy in the sense that there are not a lot of homes out there for sale, but there is a ton of people looking to either first-time home buyers or people who are looking to sell their first home to buy their second home, or even sell their current home to buy their forever home, being the ending home. Mm-hmm. So it's been phenomenal. I mean, I would say at the beginning of the pandemic that probably 70% of our business was refis. Now it's probably close to 60-40 the other way. 60% of our business is purchases and 40% of the business is refis.
It will clearly, we've talked about the lack of inventory on this show with realtors and with others, and it's going to continue for a period of time until, it slows down or greater inventory
Right.
is created.
The only problem that it creates, though, and it's starting to work itself out, the only problem that it creates is it creates a bidding war with a lot of places.
Right.
And the problem isn't with the bidding war, the problem is with getting the appraisal, because if people are bidding sometimes $50,000 to $100,000 over what the original asking price is, the appraisals aren't coming in. So now they have to, if they don't have a clause in their purchase and sales agreement that says that, they can adjust down based off the appraisal, they're stuck with purchasing that property or losing their deposit.
Wow, I haven't really heard of that yet.
Yeah. It depends. Sometimes they put a clause in there. Sometimes, some of the attorneys have been telling people not to put that clause in there. I would always tell them put the clause in there, subject to the appraisal. That's the way it is with our commitments as well. They're subject to the appraisal, or, if the customer has the funds to come up with the extra funds.
Well, there's certainly been a lot of less traditional things going on because of the bidding wars.
Right.
People are waiving home inspections and
Yep.
things like that, you never, as an attorney, would advise people to do.
Right. They're waiving the inspections. They're sometimes waiving mortgage clauses, which again, as a banker, I wouldn't recommend them doing. But
Yeah.
the real estate is such a hot market that's exactly what they're doing. As far as waiving the home inspection, I think a lot of them are still doing the home inspection, but they're waiving having it affect the purchase and sales agreement.
Okay.
So, I've heard a lot of people doing it.
Not a way out, just
Right.
yeah.
So that they know what they're getting themselves into, which is very smart.
So does that happen to be a problem if you're giving people in advance an acceptance of the mortgage, and then the prices go up till they come back for more money?
Well, they can't really come back for more money. But here's where the issue lies. If they apply for a loan and it comes back lower,
Yeah.
then we either have to adjust the mortgage down, or
You mean after the appraisal?
after the appraisal comes in. As far as the home inspection, the only problem with the home inspection is if they're putting less money down. So in other words, if they're putting 5% or less down, a lot of times the PMI companies, the private mortgage companies, will require a home inspection because they want to make sure that they're not going to end up having an issue with the fixing the home and not having the funds to fix it after the fact.
So I would assume most people's equity is being transferred from one property to another.
Most of the time,
Right.
yeah. And I know we talked earlier. My daughter, who just sold her condo, and she's moving out of her condo in July, the beginning of July, and she's still looking for a house down here. So eventually, her equity will be turned into another home. But at this point in time, she's still looking, and that's what's happening with a lot of people. They're able to sell, and some people are actually selling and renting for a short period of time because it's actually less expensive to rent, because a lot of the rental properties, they're looking for people to come in.
Right. Yeah, no, I am following it very closely, with people that I talk to in the real estate business and on the show. It really scares me, though. Your daughter's not a first-time home buyer.
Right.
But she's somebody that's on her path upward, most likely from a condo to a home or something like, if she can do that.
Correct.
It's really hard for them to make those advancements.
Right. It's especially this time where the inventory is lacking, and there's a lot of competition for the houses that are out there, and some of the houses do need work, and if they don't have those funds back them up to do the work on the house, then they have other little issues.
So I assume year to date, your 11 Plymouth offices and your 15 overall offices from January to now have done fairly well.
Yeah, they have done really well. I mean, as far as mortgages are concerned, I think we have 3 lenders. There's myself, a gentleman named Steve Masterliz, and a lady named Lisa Swain, who are the 3 originators for the bank. We've done a combined, and this is just closed so far, and just with the 3 of us, we've closed pretty close to 212 mortgages already this year.
Wow, that's a lot.
And I know when I left today to come here, there was 54 mortgages in the pipeline that were still either waiting to close or waiting for appraisals. That being another issue is the appraisals.
Right.
You know, appraisals, not only are some of them coming in a little bit lower, but they're also taking longer to get, because it's like you have a 4-lane highway coming down into a 2-lane highway, and you're trying to get everything, you know, filtered through. It's taken time. We've seen appraisal times go from 5 to 7 days to anywhere from 10 to 20 days.
Mm-hmm. Well, rates have been very, very low. It's been bumped up and down a little bit over the last few months. Today, at the time of this show, the Federal Reserve is announcing what they're going to do from this meeting, and who knows, that may impact rates going forward, it may not.
Well, I think anticipating what was going to happen today over the last 2 days, the rates have actually kicked up on the 30-year.
Okay.
By about 0.25%.
Okay.
Monday, the rates on a 30-year fixed rate refinance were at 3%.
Yeah.
And as of yesterday and today, they're up to 3.25% already.
Yeah.
Didn't affect the shorter terms, the 20-year and the 15-year, but on the 30-year, it did affect the 30-year. Maybe that's in anticipation on what they're going to do today.
So at what point does it get rate locked? And
So-
what point does the lock go away, right?
Sure. So what we do is we will allow the customer to lock in the rate at application for up to 60 days. We are doing our best, and we are getting the loans closed within that 60-day period. But if for some reason we have been unable to get the appraisal, or we've been the delay on that, we will extend that rate a little bit. For a little bit of time. Usually after 60 days, the rate becomes floating again, and it's either going to be at the locked rate or it's at whatever the current rate is, as long as it's higher.
So do people get pre-approvals without even purchasing property?
Without purchasing property, if you're purchasing a property,
Right.
you want to get a pre-approval.
Pre-approval,
But
right.
if you have a property and you're looking to just refinance, you really can't get pre-approved
Okay.
because you have a property.
Right.
So you have to go with you have certain parameters that if someone applies for a loan, you have certain parameters that you have to follow to make sure that it's an application.
So this is June 15th, 16th, isn't it?
June 16th, yeah.
What do you see going forward for the rest of the summer?
Well, if it keeps going the way it's going, like I said, the purchase market is really starting to pick up, and it's now becoming 60% of our business right now, and I think it's going to be a little bit more than that moving forward. So I think we're going to, if the rates start to go up, I think it's going to slow down a little bit on the refi side, but I still think the purchase money will be strong.
So can you share your contact information?
Sure, absolutely. Again, my name is Steve Amico. I work at Coastal Heritage Bank. I'm actually in the Hanover office. My telephone number is 781-796-6125. That's the office number. And my cell phone is 617-529-8444. And we have offices and people who can help all over the place. Right now, we have Lisa Swain, who is in our Situate office, and Steve Masterliz, who is in our Weymouth office, to be able to help.
So how far out do you do your projections at the bank?
Usually we try to do it on an
Your
annual
president's
basis.
on the radio all
Yeah,
the time,
yeah.
giving advice.
Yep. President Terabach here is always doing his thing on the radio. He's on WATD all the time. So, and we love him. He's doing a great job, and he's a lot of fun to work with.
I listened to him on my way to Plymouth many times.
So we try to look at where we're going to be on an annual basis. The problem is that last year we never anticipated that we were going to have the surge that we had last year. And I don't think anyone could have anticipated the surge that we had last year. So I think this year it's going to be a little bit more calm than it was, although we are on pace to match last year. But it's spread out over a little bit more time versus, being flooded all at once.
Well, can you share your contact information one more time, Steve?
Sure. It's Steve Amico, Coastal Heritage Bank. 781-796-6125 is my office, and 617-529-8444 is my cell.
Well, thank you again.
John, thank you very much.
Great to see
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Welcome back to the Registered Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds for Plymouth County. Steve Amico, who was my guest in the last segment, did a tremendous job talking about his bank and about the current mortgage activity throughout Plymouth County. It's certainly been an unexpected turn, as he said, during the COVID, that so many people used refi mortgages to upgrade their properties to work at home, and there's also been a lot of mortgages used for purchasing property. And Steve's been a guest before. Once again, he did a great job. This segment of the show, we always try to talk about something a little lighter in nature, some of our holidays and the great history of Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony. So the holidays in June, on the 4th, was National Donut Day. Many people received a free donut if they went to Dunkin' Donuts, and maybe some others. I went to Dunkin' Donuts. On the 6th was the D-Day anniversary. The 7th of June was National Chocolate Ice Cream Day. The 14th was Flag Day. The 19th coming up is our first time state holiday, Juneteenth Day. And the 20th is the summer solstice and Father's Day. So let me get to a couple of our notable records. We began a project years ago connecting some of our documents to the story of those documents. History is always best told as a story. The first one you're going to see is of Duxbury Beach. Duxbury Beach, we used the atlas of Plymouth County to show Duxbury Beach. It's a beautiful white sand, 6-long barrier beach owned by the Duxbury Beach Reservation. It's a unique, ever-shaping resource. Access to it is over the wooden Powder Point Bridge or over Gurnett Road from Marshfield to Duxbury. It's a beautiful recreational and scenic conservation area, and it's gone through many different ownerships, including potential developers before being transferred to the current ownership. It's very well protected. It's certainly one of Plymouth Colony's most wonderful assets. The next one you're going to see is one we haven't shown in a while. It's a poet who had grown up in Scituate. His name is Samuel Woodworth. He lived on what is now Old Oaken Bucket Road. It's the Old Oaken Bucket Homestead. He was born in Scituate in 1784. He lived with his mother and father, Abigail and Benjamin, who was a former Revolutionary War soldier on a farm, transferred to them by their grandfather, Benjamin. When Samuel later moved to New Haven in New York City, in the hot days in those cities, he always remembered fondly his Scituate childhood. He wrote this poem, The Old Oaken Bucket. It was a poem that recounts his memory of the mill and the poem, and in particular, of drinking from an old oaken bucket hung over the well. The homestead still stands at 47 Old Oaken Bucket Road. It's listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is owned by the Situate Historical Society. The next image you're going to see is of another very well-known location in the town of Bridgewater. It's known as the Tory House, and it was a stop on the Underground Railroad on what now is the north side of Bridgewater Town Common. It's a historical two-storied wooden building. It was built in 1698. The house got its name after it was in possession of a Tory sympathizer, that is, someone that was supporting the Crown during the Revolutionary War, when a lot of people weren't in agreement for the town to be under the control of England. He was given great penalty, forced to leave the town. The town was confiscated by the Continental Congress and taken over by the town of Bridgewater. It was later sold by the town of Bridgewater, used as an inn, and then as a public house, and now it is as a sign on the side of it that explains it's a stop on the Underground Railroad. But it's a well-known spot in the Underground Railroad. Two famous slaves, William and Ellen Crafts, were sheltered here in 1848 on their way north to Boston. They were heralded because they had a very unique way of their escape. William's role was to be dressed up as a slave, and his wife was more fair-skinned, so she disguised herself as an invalid white man who owned the slave, so because they wouldn't be traveling alone with a male slave as a woman. And the abolitionists got them to Boston, and then they had safe passage to England. So it is a very, again, very unique place in Plymouth County. And as part of our colonial records this month, we're talking about some decisions by the colonial court. They established a draft for their military in 1636, the first homeland security decision in America. And they later also decided, as a colony, that they passed a law from the colonial court that if anybody got injured serving in defense of the colony, they would be taken care of if they were maimed in action. So I want to thank Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards for helping me put this show together. It's my 128th show here at Brockton Cable Access. I'm given a CD by Brockton Cable Access. I burn those CDs. I share those with cable access providers throughout Plymouth County, and we share with you information about what for most people is our most valuable asset. I also want to give a shout out to Emma Reardon. She was a one-person operation today, running the control room and the cameras, and she's a recent graduate of Brockton High School, so congratulations, Emma, and thanks for your help. We'll see you next month.